Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. President Trump blasting the Russian witch hunt after another leak reveals the questions Robert Mueller hopes to ask him.
A lot of questions. So where does the investigation go from here? Here now to react to that is to this latest leak is Fox News senior judicial analyst Judge Andrew Napolitano.
Good morning,
Judge,
guys.
thanks so much for coming on. In that tweet that we just showed there, one of the big sentences that got a lot of scrutiny was that he said no questions on collusion. That's not really accurate, is it? I mean, there's a lot of questions that seem to look at that.
No, the questions that were leaked, and we don't know who leaked them. And in my opinion, they were leaked by someone in the president's team to sort of sober him up, if you will, after the Fox and Friends interview last week, in which he went on and on and on and on and on for half an hour. To remind him that this will not be that kind of interview. These are very difficult questions. They may look easy, but each one is a trigger point, a starting point to a dozen or so questions beneath it, and there's 40 different topics. The most challenging question that I saw was the one that asked about, are you aware of any assistance that your campaign sought, particularly through Paul Manafort, from the Russians? Assistance is the key word. That's the legal word. Collusion is the media and political
And we have the question you're talking about right here. It says, word for word, what knowledge did you have of any outreach by your campaign, including by Paul Manafort? This is what you're talking about, to Russia about potential assistance.
Now, in order for them to put that question to the president, they have to have what's called a factual basis, meaning some witness has told them that this event happened, and the witness knows that the president knows about it. Who would that witness be? I'm going to suggest to you who it was, and that's Rick Gates, who was Paul Manafort's business partner, who was the number 2 person in the campaign, who was his co-defendant until they flipped him and he became a star witness for the government. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it wasn't Rick Gates. This is all perfectly legal, but someone has told the special counsel that the campaign reached out to the Russians for assistance through Paul Manafort, and Donald Trump knew about it. So the question is to test his honesty. Did he know about it?
What's the good and the bad right now about these questions coming out?
The good is that the president sees how serious this is, and he won't be giving interviews in which he makes admissions that could be damning to him. The bad is this adds to his frustration that everybody knows in advance what the questions are likely to be. Normally, when the government invites you in, it's not to help you, it's to help the government. And normally, they don't tell you ahead of time what they're going to ask you. But because he's the president of the United States, they agreed to give him these questions ahead of time. If he goes before the grand jury, goes before the special counsel, he's not under oath and it's voluntary. If he goes before a grand jury, he is under oath and it's not voluntary. He has to go. He doesn't have to answer. If he doesn't answer, he has to invoke the Fifth. Remember what the president said about invoking the Fifth? Only mobsters invoke the Fifth.
All right, well, we've got, I mean, there's a lot of, speculation on whether or not they're going to get anything on collusion, and I think that that's been denied so much by the president. But I think with Comey, the big thing, the Comey questions are all about obstruction. I think they have an easier route to get something out of him on obstruction.
The significance of obstruction of justice is, even though it's not articulated in the Constitution as a basis for impeachment, it is well grounded in the law as a basis for impeachment. If they can show that his dealing with Comey was in order to frustrate the FBI's investigation of him, Donald Trump, they have a very serious case of obstruction of justice. They'll send that to the House of Representatives.
What is your opinion of this report that Mueller raised the possibility of a presidential subpoena in a meeting, I believe it was back in March?
I think that they probably got a little testy, the Mueller team and the Trump team. And the Trump team said, you know, we don't have to produce the president. Mueller said, oh, yeah, if I give you a subpoena, you'll have to prove it. You'll have to produce them. The subpoena will be before the grand jury. We talked during the break about Bill Clinton testifying before a grand jury. He made the mistake of agreeing to do it on national television, and it was a disaster for him, and we know how that ended up.
And you say pleading the Fifth would be very bad politically.
It would
just sit there and not answer
legally, it would protect him, but politically, it would be catastrophic for this president, who said he can't wait to tell his story, to plead the Fifth.
And before we let you run, your opinion on this statement here from John Dow, this warning actually, and it says, quote, "This isn't some game. You are screwing with the work of the President of the United States."
That is a very fine lawyer who was a member of the president's team until he quit. His job was to scrutinize all the documents that went from the White House to Bob Mueller. Now he's gone. He's the only one on the government's on the Trump team who's seen all the documents, and he doesn't work there anymore.
And he might be the leaker. That's what people think.
He could very well be. If he is, I believe he's doing it because I know him. I believe he's doing it in the best interest of the president. He's doing it to help the president, not to harm him.
Right.
Because John Dowd has been arguing to the president, don't sit down with Bob Mueller. You don't sit down with a guy who owns a grand jury. You're not there because he wants to help you. You're there because he thinks he can indict you.
Man, I'm tired of talking about this. I hope this ends sometime soon.
Going away, Robbie. Don't get tired of it. It's going to be with us.
Good to see you, Judge.